What's up, guys? Ricky here with another top 10 list. What I wanted to do this time is a top 10 customs list. So if you are new to this channel, I do what I call quick customs. And what that means is I'm trying to create a way of making the action figure look better without a lot of extra work. So yes, I could go all the way in and making these things look amazing by adding tons of paint, spending a lot of time, but I don't really want to put in that time, to be honest with you. And I wanted to make it simple and bring it to life so then you all could see my quick custom videos and be able to customize it easy too, even if you're not necessarily a customizer. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do today. Just know that just because it is, say, number 1 doesn't mean I put the most work into it. It just means that I like it the best. Some of these are done super simple. Some might just be a black wash, which if you don't know what that is, that's black paint and water mixed together, or you can buy washes that are a little bit more high tech, but that's what I use. So super simple process, or some of them might have added a ton of paint or a whole makeover, right? But that doesn't necessarily affect which ones I like the best. So as we go through this video today, I would love for you to post in the comments which one you think is the best, if you agree with the list that I did, or if there's certain customs that I did that you like even better. So cool. Well, let's get into this list, and thank you all so much. And here we go. Number 10, McFarlane Redeemer. So this one was actually a very simple custom. So all I did with this one was a black wash, and I didn't do a heavy black wash, which means I had more water to paint ratio. But it was one of those, when they first unveiled this figure, I just thought, oh man, it looks just so basic and plain, and I'm a huge fan of the Redeemer. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to black wash this, right? To see if some of that detail, just by that simple process, if I can make some of that pop. So that's what I did. So unfortunately, with some action figures, you know, you want to wash them down first with like a degreasing soap. So that's what I did. And unfortunately, the black wash didn't lay down as well as I would like. So I did have to do a lot of different layers, and it looked terrible at first. But what I did afterwards is, after I got it completely covered, did quite a few coats, I took a damp washcloth and then I rubbed off the excess. So then it was just in the creases, but also looked, you know, it kept it kind of, like I said, in the creases, but kind of also dulled it down a little bit, made it look a little more realistic. So that's what I did with this one. So yeah, if you look close, right, you can see just really how it makes some of that pop, right? So the gold just looks a little bit more realistic in gold instead of just like a gold plastic. And the blue looks a lot better as well. So pretty easy to do, and that's why this one was number 10. Number 9, McFarlane Deathstroke. So this was the second custom I ever did, and the first custom I did for McFarlane. So when this figure first came out, I saw a lot of people doing action figure photography with it and thought it looked really cool. I just didn't know if I wanted to go down that route. So that was actually the first McFarlane figure I actually purchased that was DC anyways. But when I went to the store, I saw it. It was literally just the plain like dark blue and orange and really no other colors for the most part, which is kind of sad because it had a really cool sculpt. So I decided, you know what, let's customize it. How about that? So what I did, I got it home and I decided, okay, what do I need to do in order to make this look better? So if you noticed on the belt, they had a gun in the holster, a little hand grenade thing on the side, and both of those were just black. So you can see the gun there. I did paint silver, right, to make it actually look like a gun, right? Because it just blended in. And then I realized it needed a black wash. So I took the black wash, put it on the silver bits, and basically all over the whole figure, and then did the same thing. Just kind of rubbed it off just to make sure it stayed in the creases. And then I took a silver and just highlighted all the cracks because it had so many cool details on it, like cracks and nicks and all those things in it, that I thought, man, like we're really missing out on those details. So I decided to highlight all those. And then after I did that, obviously finished with the black wash. And the end result turned out really good. So in the images, it's kind of hard to tell between the two, I think, personally. But in person, it looks really, really good and so much better. So that's why this one was number 9. Number 8, McFarlane Devastator. So this figure actually didn't get that long ago. I think I got it a few months ago. And it was one I passed on originally, but I saw it at a store loose, and I decided I would really like to see how this one turns out. So what I did with this one is it was originally just gray, where you can see the gray, and then all the horns and spikes on it were black. So no differentiation in color or anything like that. So I thought, you know what, there's so many good textures and details on this. The sculpt is so nice that the black wash is really going to show well. So did a black wash there. Then all the black bits, like the horns, you can see the spikes there on the shoulders. I took a medium gray and just lightly dry brushed over the top, which means I dabbed most of the paint off the brush to where there was barely any on it and started rubbing it on those spikes. What happens is it brought out those textures and those details even more, made them pop a little bit. So gave some differentiation so it's not just black. And it made a world of difference, right? So after I did that, right, finished with the black wash that kind of settled down that medium gray on the spikes, but also filled in the creases on the figure itself and really brought this to life, right? So when you look at those details, you can see, right, just the, I mean, man, the sheer amount of details on this is insane. You know, like if you look at all the crevices, the creases, the cracks, the spikes, the horns, just everything. This figure needed that, right? And that's all it needed, right? Even without the spikes being colored, just a black wash from factory would have made this figure look that much more exceptional. And that's why this one is number 8. Number 7, and the biggest disappointment in my opinion from McFarlane Spawn is the McFarlane manga Spawn. So this one, you can tell by the image on the left, like when it came out, like one, like it was hyped up pretty good because I remember I originally unveiled this just by showing the back of it, and everybody's like, "Oh, medieval Spawn, right? This is cool." Little did we know it was this, but when they showed the images, I mean, it looked crazy that they only did blue plastic, red plastic, and some silver, and it just looked like a child's cheap toy, right? Which is so sad because there were still some good details there. So I decided to get it, and I wasn't originally going to, and I was like, you know what? I can make this so much better. So what I did with this one, which it looks like how it should now, is I did a black wash first just to see if that would be enough. And after I did that, I realized it wasn't enough. So I decided, okay, how can I really bring out these textures and details and make it look more like metal rather than just plastic, right? So I took a silver, and the shimmering silver, and I dabbed off almost all the paint possible where it barely showed up at all, and I started rubbing it with a bigger brush all over the figure itself. And what happened is it gave it kind of that shimmering tone and really brought out those details. So you can see the sculpt really shining through now, and it actually looks like metal rather than plastic. And it was a super simple process. And then I finished that with a black wash again, just to kind of dull down the silver just a little bit. And I did the same thing with the weapons, and I did make sure I took the cape off, by the way, because that would get kind of not so good. But yeah, just that little bit made this figure look so much more amazing how it should have looked out of the package. And that's why this one is number 7. Number 6, NECA AVP Arcade Predator. So this was actually the first custom that I ever did. So how this came to be is, if you remember, there was a action figure called the NECA Golden Angel, and it was the Elder Predator in its infancy, essentially, when it was younger. But it came with 2 masks, 2 biomasks. I put one on it that I really liked a lot that looked good with the gold armor. And then they had this bronze mask, which I didn't think looked good with the gold armor of that figure, but I hated just seeing it kind of packed up without anything. So I decided, okay, well, what if I made a custom that wore that mask? And it was already copper colored. So the mask, I didn't customize at all. It came at the factory that way. It was bronze on top, and then it had a yellow skin tone. So I decided, okay, let's do that. So what I did is I bought the AVP Predator because it had a flesh tone base, and I thought that'd be a good one to start with. So how I did this is I took a copper paint, dry brushed over all the brown bits, so I made it copper so it matches the mask, the helmet. And then what I did with the skin tone is I took a yellowish greenish color. So I got the tone that I wanted kind of mixed up, and I added a little bit of water to make it a little runny. And that's what I rubbed over the skin tone at first. And it looked pretty good, but it was more yellow. So I decided, how do I make this and differentiate it a little bit more? And I took a green and dry brushed it just on some little bits there too, and it made a world of difference. So it really made some differentiation. The yellow and green tones and the skin tone really popped, and then the faded tones underneath that were part of the plastic showed through. That really gave it some texture or some depth, which was really cool. So yeah, this one I wanted to put higher on the list, but after looking at it with all the other ones, this is kind of where it fell at number 6. Number 5, McFarlane Medieval Spawn. This figure, the sculpt on this one is phenomenal. I was really looking forward to this figure when they announced it, and they showed the promo pics, and I thought that it was just unfinished, and realized that's exactly how it was going to come in the package. So unfortunately, when you saw the before picture, they kept the club foot and a lot of the gauntlets just gray, like gray plastic, like silver, but it didn't look very good. So it looked incomplete. So what I did is I decided, okay, well, let's actually make this one look like how it should. So same thing as I do with all of them. So I ended with a black wash. So obviously it filled in the details, made them pop, right? But I know I needed to match the colors on there, you know, on the rest of it with the pieces there. So the gauntlets, you can see I put a little bit of red on the gauntlets. And then the club foot and the other foot, I decided to do a red. So I did a red there and then did some silver highlighting on it to really bring out those details. And I did black wash the cape too and added silver on the little skulls on top. But yeah, you can just see like that gauntlet there, right? So it's got red. And then when I did the black wash, it really showed the details. And look at that leg. The legs look good, right? With the red, the silver. And I just wish it would look like that out of the package, you know. So that's all this one needed was, right, the red paint to kind of match it. I used a cardinal red if you're curious about what color red I used. And then, yeah, just a shimmering silver to touch up the highlights. And then black wash the figure. And that was the final result. And honestly, one of my favorite customs overall. And, yeah, I just wish they would have done that out of the package, unfortunately. So that's why it's number 5. Number 4, McFarlane Doomsday. This is one of the easiest customs you could ever do. But when you look on the left there, you can see that everything was just very plain per usual from McFarlane, right? So you had gray, you had white horns, green trunks, that's it. No black wash, no other, you know, dry brushing, no details, right? But this figure, just like I talked about earlier with the Devastator, has some really good details and sculpt that really needed to get shown off. So I realized after I bought this one that, you know what? All I need is a black wash. That's all I need. And literally what you see there, that's all it is. I just obviously watered down black paint, covered over it, and, you know, wiped off the excess, you know, with a damp cloth, like I've already said previous in the video. But yeah, it just made it look that much better, because then it also made the tones kind of blend together, right? So the white horns and the gray skin now with the black wash over the top made it very subtle rather than feeling like it's like feeling unnatural, which is really cool. So even though this one was one of the most simple customs, just the final result is so cool. And just thinking that that's all this figure needed out of the box and it would look like this, like that is phenomenal. So yeah, still one of my favorite customs and one of my favorite action figures after adding that black wash. So yeah, so it's crazy. So that's why this one ended up being number 4. Number 3, McFarlane Frost King. And this was a build-a-figure, so you had to get all the figures in order to build it. This one I found actually loose, already assembled at a vintage stock, and I decided to get it because I also realized I could customize this one and make it look really good too. So this one actually took a little bit of extra stuff, right? So what I did is I wanted to really make it look good. So the cape there was actually just all gray. So I did paint some white fur on there. So I just dry brushed white on there. The ice was just a clear green plastic. And same thing, dry brushed some white over the top. And now it looks frosty and really looks like ice. So I did that on all those clear bits. And it really made the details pop and also just looked a little more realistic. And then I took a lot of silver and I highlighted the buttons on there. I also dry brushed a little silver on the rest of the, the armor on top just to make it look a little better. I added white paint on the little spikes at the bottom of the cape and dry brushed white on that just very subtly so the textures popped. And then yeah, just added silver to a lot of the gray pieces around the armor just to make it pop a little bit more. And even like the loop there on the belt and some of the piece on the belt were all just black, not silver, so it was adding that as well. And then afterwards, I did do a little wash on the white pieces, so on the fur, but I did not do a wash on some of the other parts of the figure. But what's cool is, yeah, just a little bit of dry brushing, little silver highlights, and that white dry brushing over all the ice bits made it look really, really good. And honestly, is still one of my favorite customs today just because of how it turned out. And that's why it's number 3. Number 2, and one of my favorite customs, is a McFarlane Scarecrow. And in the imagery here, I feel like it's kind of difficult to tell. You might be able to tell the difference between the two, but there's a lot of things that I did to this one that looks really good. So first thing that I did is it came just black, and that's basically it. So just black with some, the orange on there. And I thought, okay, well, let's make this look a little bit better. So look at all those textures like on the hood, right? That didn't show up at first. So what I took is a medium gray first, and I rubbed it all over the black. So it maintained black, but just showed the textures, right? Then I took a brown and dry brushed that over the top of the hood and stuff as well, and on the rest of the body. So it looked a little bit murky and dirty. Then on the stitches, I took a light beige color and I dry brushed it over the stitches. So then the stitches really pop too. So then you really get this differentiation of a lot of different tones. So you have black, gray, brown, all that. And even like on the belt, like the little sacks there or the little pockets, I made those brown. His gauntlet there is brown as well, which wasn't that color before. And because I did brown and then dry brushed a little bit of a lighter brown over it, it made it look a little more like leather. So you can tell I did the same thing with the brace there on the leg, with the noose there around his neck. And yeah, and those details, man, they just made it look so realistic and so good. And in person, it is phenomenal. And then also took some silver highlighting as well on the rest of the figure just to make some of those things pop, like the zipper and any of those little small things that were missed. And yeah, this figure turned out looking exceptional. Okay, and here's a few honorable mentions. These are customs that I really like that just didn't make the top 10 list. So you have Killer Croc, you have Mr. Freeze, and you have the Dark Father Build-A-Figure. And these are all by McFarlane. And the reason why I put these here is they all just used a black wash. I didn't add anything else, just a black washed all these figures. But you can tell, right, it really made the details pop. Like Killer Croc needed it because I saw it and was like, man, it's missing something. And then just the black wash, right, makes all the scales and all those textures pop. And it just looks much better. And then it kind of dirtied up the pants. Mr. Freeze looked really plain because it was just all white with no details. So adding the black wash made the details pop. So it actually looks like an outfit now, which is good rather than just plastic. And then the Dark Father, it looks a lot more dark and rugged and really brings out the cracks and just the overall look of the figures themselves. So yeah, easy. Just a black wash and really made these few figures pop. And they didn't make the list, but I wanted to show them off anyways, just so you all can see them. And if you do like these better than some ones I put on the list, just let me know in the comments, because I would love to hear, your point of view as well. Okay, some more honorable mentions from McFarlane are the Gorilla Grodd, Caveman Batman, and Armored Batman. So the one from Dark Knights of Steel. So these ones also, especially like Gorilla Grodd there. So that one was awful out of the package. So it was bright orange, rubber bits on the action figure itself, but Gorilla Grodd actually looked great underneath. It's just the armor itself just looked terrible. So, and same thing with some of the others. So what I decided to do with Gorilla Grodd is just add a black wash, take a little bit of silver and highlight it on certain parts to make it look like armor, and then even touched up the gold a little bit. But it actually, you see all the textures and details now, and it actually looks like armor, and it looks so much better, and I wish I would have saw that. I did mess with the cape too. You can't really see that, but the cape I did paint white, even though that was orange too, which looked kind of wild there. Then you have the Armored Batman, same thing. It was gray plastic, didn't look that good. Dry brushed some silver over the top and black washed it, and then that really brought out the details, and it looks like armor. Caveman Batman, it was more about adding different beige colors to the brown that was already there, so it really made it pop and give it some depth. And then black washed it, and that one was a little more subtle. However, if you compare the factory one to that one, there's actually a huge difference in the way it looks. So yeah, these ones added a little more details too. Some of them, like Gorilla Grodd, were pretty tough, but overall, great figures. Okay, and number one on my top customs list is the McFarlane Swamp Thing. This figure is awesome. So on the left, you can see, so the sculpt is phenomenal. It's so good. But the figure itself was just green. They had two different types of green. They had regular green and then like a neon green, and that was it. So I decided, let's see what I can do with this figure. So what I did first is I took some brown. So you could tell there's some like bark stuff in there. So I took a brown first, and I put barely any on my paintbrush, and I dry brushed a lot of spots on there. So the vines, the vines, the bark, different things like that, that's what I did on those spots, which, made it differentiated a little bit from the rest of the green figure pieces. The roses on the back, I did paint red because they were just green, and you can tell, right? So look at the bark, right? It's really showing off there, right? So yeah, just touched that up a little bit and made it a little subtle. And then I did take a little bit of green, I believe, on some of the leaves just to make it a little different. But some of the green was already there. And then finished it with a black wash at the end. So after black washing it, it filled in those textures, those details, differentiated a lot of the stuff. But I think the big win here was just the bark piece, right? So just adding that little bit of brown, to the top just to be able to give it some depth. And I think overall this figure, the sculpt and everything was amazing. The figure, if you have the ability to pick it up. And it was such an easy custom, but it looks so good, and is my favorite custom still to date. So absolutely love it. Okay, so thank you all for tuning in today to this video. Thank you for liking and subscribing. And hopefully you enjoyed this list today. You know, I always like doing these top 10s. You guys have been really supportive, and it seems like my top 10 lists tend to be some of the most popular ones, so appreciate that. And I thought I'd do one on the customs, right? So it's something I like to do, and like I said at the beginning of the video, I like to make quick customs, right? So efficient, quick ways to make figures look better so you don't have to do all this little extra work. So you can get it done in 30 minutes to an hour, right? Like that's kind of the goal. So, you know, and hopefully it's helpful to you all. So yeah, y'all continue to do these, continue to bring reviews, customizations, all that, you know, for you all. Feel free to tune into the quick customs and watch some of the other videos. Most of these that I talked about have the quick custom videos. You can see more details on kind of what I went through and how I went through the process. But yeah, overall, it was a really fun video to make. And yeah, I really like I'm going to keep doing customs. So appreciate the support again. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will catch you all in the next video.